All right, guys. Thursday night, ThoughtFLOW. IG's being a little bit special tonight. I'm not sure why, but it could end up being a short show considering it's crashed a couple times. So I'm going to give it a couple of minutes, let people filter in because it's weird. Robin, can you hear me? This will be a very short video if you cannot hear me. Okay, I'll take that as a yes. Thank you very much. So, thank goodness. There's so many things happening on the planet right now, and it's hard to decide what to talk about because there's just so many things. So if there's anything that you guys want us to hit, tap on, touch about, whatever, feel free to drop it into the chat. Thank you, Robin. But it's been a very, very eventful week, and I've talked to a lot of people who have a lot of feelings about what's been happening, and in all aspects of life, right? From Pilates land to the real world to local elections. There's been a lot of fire this week in 2021. So like I said, I want to open it up to talk to those who maybe have a lot to say, but maybe don't know where to begin. Hi, Karen. Hi, Tammy. Hi, Harmony. Good to see all of you guys. Nikki is coming in from a parent-teacher conference, so she's going to be coming in on fire. But in the meantime, we can get started. Tammy, it was great to see you this week. Tammy, Robin, and Harmony joined me this week for our third installment of one of my Beyond the Bullshit workshops. And we were talking about diversity and how diversity really isn't enough. Diversity is very much the surface aspect of what it's going to take to make the world a better place. Come on, kitty. Come along. Better I invite her up than she knocks everything down and then we have to start all over again. So yeah, it was a really great discussion, guys. It was great and it was lively and it was heartfelt. It was just a really, really good talk. I love these talks because they are so beneficial in so many ways. But tonight, I'd like to start off by just talking about, Emma, it's late for you in your side of the pond, on your side of the pond. So thanks for saying hello. I hope all is well. We need to catch up. Here comes Nikki, rolling in on fire. A lot of people are really, really despondent about what's happened with, and in particular, watching Virginia and hearing the rhetoric. It's a lot of stuff.
Sorry, guys. There's a lot going on. Sorry.
I hope your lips are feeling refreshed.
They are now.
Hello, friend.
Whew. Teaching, parent-teacher conferences, and I cook dinner.
I've been in this chair for 6 hours.
I know.
My butt just gets wider and wider. I'm like, oh, it used to be so cute. Now it's like the side of a barn. But, barns need love too.
They do.
They do. They do. Nikki, the elections. Let's just, what are you feeling? I have to know. Dying to know. Hi, Allie.
I'm just numb at this point. Like I'm numb. I'm numb at all of the things that are going on. And I just sort of picture in my head this sort of medieval catapult and like people, they're down in the fray and they're like, ah, this is unfair and we shouldn't do this and, this should happen and this shouldn't happen. And then there's just some people who just get into the catapult and they're literally just catapulted to another. And like the people down in the fray are just like, no, but we shouldn't. And then like, they'll pause for a moment and they'll watch.
That's it.
That's what I feel like. I feel like there's some fray and there's some catapults.
Remember, was it BMW? They had this famous ad campaign. There are spectators and there are drivers.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there are so many people at this point that are willing to be spectators
Mm-hmm.
that, I mean, you don't even have a catapult operator anymore. People are just like, oh, wonder how that's going to go. Well, I certainly can't pull on the catapult because, catapult's rights. And I can't do anything about the catapult because, I might break a nail. Is there a union for this catapult? Oh, there's no union. I can't do it. It's like everybody continuously passes the buck and not paying attention to the fact that by passing the buck along,
Mm-hmm.
by kicking the can, it's like this whole climate thing too. By kicking the can, all you're doing is saying we're going to be even more on fire. We've got more to lose because
Mm-hmm.
it's not like we're in a holding pattern. We are definitely circling the drain. And when you circle, you go down. It's not just like you're like running around the brim. Ooh, circling the drain is fun. I see you. No, it's like right down that drain.
Well, and if you stay in the conversation and if you see the catapult getting what do you call it? Like the arm of the catapult is getting longer. And then that means that group of people gets thrown even further.
But it also means that it's just physics. You're going to need more people to pull back a longer arm.
Yes.
And instead of having more people to pull back the longer arm, we have the same number of people pulling back the arm, and everybody else is like, ooh, yeah, I don't know if that's going to work. I mean, can somebody like draw us a flow chart? Like, again, what is it going to take? What is it going to take? And when we look at the breakdown of it, when we look at what happened in Virginia, and granted,
I just pictured the non-believers building a catapult with an arm this long. So they just get smacked back into the...
It's like a bad episode of Looney Tunes. Like, oh, sorry. That didn't work for you, Wile E. Coyote.
And they're like, well, we just don't understand why this worked. Because you don't believe in science. That's why it didn't work. Because you don't believe in science.
I mean, that is definitely a problem. Science is lost. All science is lost. We're not even just talking like CDC science. We're talking about social science. Everything is, I don't want to say everything is losing, because I would say certain things are on trend.
Mm-hmm.
Which means they can stay on trend, which means they could turn the other way if that's what the trend is. I don't know what the trend would be moving forward into 2022. But what I do know is that as Americans, we have come to support and uphold our democracy, air quotes, for whatever it is, for whatever it's worth. And we are literally watching it end before us, while Lauren Boebert is having Fauci fired for killing puppies, and folks are sitting on a grassy knoll waiting for JFK Jr., the dead guy, to come back to life. And, all of these things are happening. And, the media, everyone wants to complain about the mainstream media, complain about the fact that they're giving these people air.
Right.
Because that's a problem. That's feeding it.
Yeah. And who, the tech guy from the insurrection, what do they want to give him, 45 days for storming the Capitol?
45 days.
I was like, they might as well just said 45 minutes, time served, because you had to sit in a courtroom.
At this point, I don't understand why they don't just let them all go. It's a colossal waste of money. It's a joke. And
yeah,
all
it is a waste of money.
is further emphasize the inequities of our system.
Mm-hmm.
Nikki, why don't you and I go and raid the Capitol tomorrow? Do you think we'll be here for ThoughtFLOW next Friday?
Well, not only that, we potentially could get on the plane and could be, arrested upon the plane landing for any number of things. You got that half white looking baby. I got those half white looking babies. You know what that means.
So what Nikki is alluding to, guys, it's happened again. On a Southwest flight, a white woman was accused of human trafficking because she was traveling with her Black daughter. They were on their way to a funeral. So
her brother, who had just passed suddenly the day before.
So they're quiet, they're despondent, they're not really interacting with anybody. They got on last. They got onto the plane last. I don't know, because they were in the last boarding group, perhaps? Like, nobody wants to get on the plane last. I promise you. Nobody. And because of this, a flight attendant thought it best, rather than to interact with these humans, never had one interaction with them, a flight attendant thought it best to tell the pilot to call the authorities, to have these people who are going through a trauma then separated and discussed and interrogated about being trafficked. And this is the fourth one this year that I can count. This is the fourth one that's actually made press.
And there's a side of me that says, okay, here's a woman who wants to be a protector. But the disturbing part is she went above and beyond in the sense that, so when they boarded, if you board Southwest, ABC, and hopefully there's no D, and you get on, and so they asked also for seats together. And when she's citing the things that gave her pause, that made her think that this girl was being trafficked, it's all normal things that people do when they're flying Southwest. If you find out
any airline, P.S.
And under the stress of finding out that a loved one has passed. So you find out the night before that your brother has passed. You're not going to get in the A group, because everyone, that 24 hours has come and gone, right?
Right.
So they are going to board last, but she's making it sound like they boarded last. If you're going to traffic someone, you're not going to be first. You're not going to be last. No. You want to mix in the middle.
Do not want to draw attention to yourself.
Right.
This is
common
sense.
This is not rocket science.
Correct.
And then they asked to have seats together. Well, because it's a mother and her minor daughter. Again, nothing out of the ordinary. They have to board last. They know they can't sit together. They asked some people to move. The people obliged.
With no problem, by the way.
With no problem.
Drama.
The people obliged. The people obliged. So now I'm like, so that seems suspicious to you, that people asked and the other people obliged, and then they didn't talk. The woman was exhausted. She found out less than 24 hours ago that her brother passed.
Right.
But you want to ascribe how she should respond. And then she said her daughter was listening to audiobooks.
Yeah.
There's Wi-Fi on a plane.
Something that people do when they travel.
When they travel.
Period.
When they travel. So these very normal circumstances cause this woman to bypass any
Sissy.
to bypass any level of humanity, and go straight to her captain, who probably responded appropriately, because he might have been like, oh, she's got all her gray matter. Certainly there was a conversation to be had, but maybe not. So then you further delayed these people who are flying on short notice because her brother died, and you further delayed them, and your reasoning. I'm looking for the girl looked disheveled. I'm looking for the
refuses to make eye contact.
Right. I'm looking for she's flinching. She's jumpy. I'm looking for anything. I'm looking for the girl is trying to pass me a note because apparently her mother was dead to the world because she was trying to catch up on sleep. So again, there's all of these things. So this woman is like freaking knocked out comatose because she's exhausted. So you had all this time to, would you like an extra soda? Write a note on the little cookie bag. No. You don't do any kind of, I'm not even going to call it investigating. You don't do anything just human.
Inquiry. You start with a, hi, how are you? You know, again, like Nikki said, you've seen somebody we've all been in situations where we've seen somebody that's maybe not where they want to be, by choice or otherwise. You know, there are certain behaviors that you see over and over again when somebody is under duress.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, the mother is knocked out by her own admission, and the flight attendant doesn't even bother to address the child in any way to try to discern what's going on. I understand.
What was her age, Misty? What was the kid's age?
16?
Yeah, this wasn't like a, just so you guys have context, this wasn't like a 5-year-old, or this was someone who, I believe she was at least double digits.
I think she was 16. I don't have it in front of me, unfortunately, but I think she was 16 years old. So that means she was old enough to have a conversation. They're native English speakers. And again, I understand if you see something, say something. Totally get it. But what did you see that was so egregious about a woman sleeping and her daughter listening to an audiobook that made you call the authorities?
Right.
And again.
And you weren't the only flight attendant.
Right. If you didn't know how to ask a question, 10, she looks older than 10. Are you looking at the current one? Because this has happened 4 times now with Southwest, not the one that happened in Aurora, Colorado. This is Phoenix, something like that. Anyway, again,
I don't know. 10-year-olds are on TikTok. 10-year-olds. She was listening to an audiobook. Like this, this is not Little House on the Prairie, Laura Ingalls Wilder 10-year-old.
Right. And what Tammy says here, I'm surprised the airline doesn't have a training protocol for signs of human trafficking. Well, damn, they've had 4 incidents this year. If they can't figure this out, that they need a protocol, what's it going to take? And, one of the really interesting things about it is that they said that Southwest said that they shared news of the incident with their customer relations team. I mean, so what, you going to send them a coupon for those little crusty biscotti? Biscotti's not going to cut it in this case. I'm sorry. Again, when you choose to take the easy way out, and to me, this is being undercover Karen on this one. If you choose to take that way and cause harm, and this kind of thing causes harm, it's just like it is when you're being accused of stealing something that you had nothing to do with or whatever it is. The harm that this puts in somebody, especially when they're already in a weakened position,
right,
is grave. And then on top of it, you have to think about other people who are like, oh yeah, maybe I want to adopt a child, and I want to do a transracial adoption, but,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want white people calling me in all the time. What am I going to
Right.
do? Like, what happens with my neighbors? It's such a bad situation. And it's, again, we're supposed to have reasoning skills as adult human beings. Well, I mean, I just told you about the QAnon people in Texas. So maybe we're not
Mm-hmm.
supposed to have reasoning skills, but we're supposed to be able to do better than that. Sissy says it's being too dang nosy. It's worse than that. I think if it was nosy, she would have asked questions. She wasn't being nosy, and she wasn't, to me anyway. It's not investigative. It's harmful.
It's very harmful because it's a power play. It's someone deciding that I agree that if you see something, say something, but we're unclear about what she saw. I wanted her to go to another flight attendant. I wanted her to go to I wanted her to even just ask the question of people sitting around them. You know what I
I
mean? Like there
wanted
were
her to
so
talk to
many,
them. Hey, how are
yes.
you? Oh, I see that your mother is in a coma. Can I get you anything? Is there anything you need? Do you need bathrooms open if you need to check it out? She knew she was a minor. Bathrooms open if you need to check it out. That gives her the opportunity to let this child get up and go to the bathroom, and she can ask her a question there if she needs to, if she's going to be nosy McNippenstein. But if not, it's like she wanted to put herself in the middle of the situation, but she didn't want to take the heat for it. So she was just like, I'm just going to push this over onto them without doing the right level of investigation. I have a problem with that.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because I love flying Southwest. And one of the reasons that I love flying Southwest is because I don't think I've ever flown to Phoenix, but I love flying Southwest because I feel like, I've been on there where it's been like a black female captain flying the plane. I've been on there where it's been an all black flight crew. I do have a sensitivity because when I've flown with my boys, yes, I understand my kids look exactly like me, but I got them IDs. I got them state IDs proving who they were and that we lived. And then my name is different too. I have a different name than them. And so, yes. And, I went through security and, you know, older black woman, she just laughed at me. She's like, you got them IDs? And she's like, girl, she's like, those babies look just like you. They couldn't belong to anybody else. And it's like, but that's how we live. That's what it is. This is what we always have to preface. There's something that has to be prefaced. There's something that has to be prefaced. And that's what people don't understand. And that's what they don't understand, the frustration. And for someone to just be able to say, I think this is suspicious. I think this is a little out of character. Well, what is your litmus for out of character? Because at the end of the day, you are a flight attendant, so one could argue that you have seen some crazy stuff.
I mean,
But
especially lately, there's all kinds of crazy going on.
But let's see. Harmony's writing, a black woman from Aurora flying with her adopted white sister has been arrested by police in Dallas after a passenger on a Frontier Airlines flight reported her to airline staff as a potential trafficker. But how do you go to someone reporting something? Because basically, the captain on the plane in flight, hanging in the air, he is the law on that plane.
Right.
How do you get to the woman being arrested? Where's the questioning? How do you go from just someone deciding to say, this is what's happening, this is what it is? And what is your background in that?
Well, that's why you have to, like Tammy said, it's surprising that they don't have a policy. You have to have a policy and a procedure for this. I mean, if you're at Costco and you say, I've misplaced my child, they go into Code Adam, which if you're not in the States, you don't know what Code Adam is. But Adam Walsh was the son of
I can now remember his name.
Mr. Walsh, the actor.
I cannot remember that man's name.
I can never remember because I
decades.
always think of Adam because he was kidnapped and murdered. And so he has really fought to advocate for the rights of parents and missing and exploiting children. John Walsh.
Thank you, Robin.
We couldn't come up with John. Oh,
like,
we're the worst. So terrible. Sorry, John. But I mean, again, Code Adam goes into effect right away. As soon as you tell somebody they're on the comms, nobody can go in or out. Bathrooms are locked down. Nothing happens until they locate that child.
Right.
So, stores have procedures, at least the big ones do, the ones that are going to get sued if something goes wrong.
Malls do, for sure.
For sure. So how can you be Southwest Airlines and not have a procedure for this? It should be mandated by, Tammy says here, it should be mandated by the airline for cultural sensitivity training. 100%.
But why are we even relying on passengers? I mean, I have to say, I have to be honest, I don't know what a trafficked victim looks like. Well, I know what I see on TV. I know what a person in distress looks like.
That's it.
Right? But if someone said to me, I think that person is being trafficked, the next thing out of my mouth would be, why? What do you see? What signs do you see?
100%. Yep.
And not because I don't believe you, but it's like, what makes you an authority? What made this passenger on Frontier Airlines? Why were they an authority in human trafficking? And so then the way my brain works is like, are you trying to get the suspicion off of you? Because you human trafficking.
Well, I mean, listen, if you're going to talk to the police, you're going to have more information anyway. So if the passenger said this to the flight attendant and then the flight attendant had to take it to the pilot, there had to have been more information shared. And if the information was, well, look at him, that certainly cannot be enough. It can't be enough, especially in this day and age.
Who's Studio Pilates?
That's Tammy.
Tammy, where do you live? Michigan? Is MI Michigan?
Yeah, she's in Michigan.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I believe that's like one of the hot hubs. People smuggle in and out of that particular, something about that region that's a really big deal. Well,
the Midwest and the way that especially Chicago, more trains come through the Great Lakes. That's the way, that's kind of the thing for, obviously we don't have shipping tankers, but a lot of the trains, a lot of freight trains, a lot of passenger trains, just by the Great Lakes, there are more trains that come through this area. That I do know. It is very much a transportation hub. And then, of course, all of the highways and all of the connections to highways. So,
which makes perfect sense. So Sissy asks a question here. Okay, what's the difference between distress from a loved one passing or someone being trafficked? I think if I read access to water was the difference. I was like,
some people have more access to water and they get stressed by that.
I mean, it's very stressful. But to me, a person who's just lost a loved one is going to react a little bit differently. They're not going to want to be touched. They're not going to want to be, if you come close, they may retract. They may, I'm not exactly sure of what it is, but I feel like we have to establish a certain understanding of a procedure, no matter what the reaction is, so that we can then handle it from there. Cultural sensitivity training, like Tammy said earlier, that will get people to recognize, because for some people this doesn't cross their mind, that there are transracial adoptions, or that kids travel with their friends, and so a parent and a child may not match one of the other children. There's all kinds of reasons why there could be a multiracial or multicultural situation on a plane. And now we're saying to people, oh, well, you have to be worried about this too. Jesus, I mean, like, what are we supposed to do next?
I
It's
also think
absurd.
that I think that one of the differences, so when you talk about someone being trafficked, that's a level of ongoing abuse. It's not just what's going on emotional. There's the emotional fraying, and then there may be some physical. Um, you look for things like dishevelment versus someone who is sad over the trauma of losing a loved one, right? That's, although it may have a physical component, it's more emotional in that moment. You may not have been starving. You may not have had, you may not have been kept in a basement for a couple of days, or maybe you have a pallor to your skin. Um, and there is that retraction, because there's the
That
physical
physical abuse
response, right? That
component.
physical response where you kind of recoil, which you may not necessarily experience with someone who's just suffering the loss of a loved one.
Right.
There's a sense of shell shock, that look of just, it's sort of, I would call it like a palpable fear kind of emanating from, the person's being, versus a sadness. The weight of sadness can be, very heavy as well, but I
And
think
affects
it's
people
more,
differently. Like
yeah, for
Susie was saying,
sure.
I will tell you this. I had for way too long, it was about a year, a stalker when I was in college. And I mean, it was really making me insane. And I just remember feeling very, very spastic. I was very spastic. Oh, sorry, cat. I if somebody
I
got
thought you were
too,
giving examples.
well, I was gonna like kick my foot up, and I kicked the cat, which I feel badly about now, but she'll be fine. I remember that if a man that I didn't know got too close, and I'm like a personal space person anyway, if a man got too close, I mean, I just remember my shoulders would come up around my
Mm-hmm.
ears. I would
Mm-hmm.
always, and I still do this sometimes, look for the exits. I always had something in my hand that I could use as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, looking back on it, I can only imagine what I looked like a
Mm-hmm.
crazy lunatic, and that's exactly how I felt on the inside. But I couldn't portray that, because if I bumped into this guy on the street, I was determined to not let him know that he was getting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just remember feeling boxed in and always looking for an escape
Mm-hmm.
route. And you could see it in my face. You could see it just in the way I held my hands. I was a complete spaz. I feel like people who are and I don't know, but I would assume that if you've gone through that kind of trauma, and there's grooming involved, and then all of these other things that go along with human trafficking,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to see signs of something. Like Elizabeth Smart, she was on the Red Table
Mm-hmm.
the other day, and it was pretty powerful, because her ordeal was just so just maddening and crazy. And she talked a lot about what it was like to have to walk down the street and feel like you really, really hope that somebody can see you, and nobody does. I would have to think that she was, and she even said, I was trying to make eye contact with people. I was trying to connect with people, like sending it out of my pores and
Mm-hmm.
hoping somebody would catch it. If you're chilling out listening to an audiobook, you're not trying to get away. And the child was old enough to not be like lulled by, I mean, are they listening to like hypnosis? No, that's not what it is. It doesn't work that way. So
Right.
I have trouble believing that it was anything other than this person. I mean, I don't know what her motivation would have been. I can't even speculate what her motivation would have been, but I feel like we're at a point right now where you probably shouldn't even guess because it's going to make you mad.
And I think that, that there will be a lot of people who'll be like, but yes, she was trying to do a good thing. And it's like, well, there are many ways to do good things, but the reality of it is, it's her desire to do a good thing has further traumatized the family.
Is it a desire to do a good thing? Because I am that cynical. And I'm sorry to be that way, but, again, you could have done 1,000 other things. You could have initiated a conversation. What you chose to do is blow up their world at a low point.
Right.
That's not trying to do a good thing. And she didn't know what was going on in their life because she never bothered to ask in the first place, which is why we ended up here.
Right. Nope. I agree. And that's, and so people create more stuff down in the fray, and there's people just catapulting over. And ever so often you just go, oh, how'd that person get to be mayor? Oh, but wait, down here in the fray.
Yeah. They're still arguing about their rights over here. So speaking of the fray.
Not the band, guys.
Nah.
Not the band.
I wouldn't talk about them anyway. So is anybody following has anybody followed the Ahmaud Arbery jury selection? Because that is another thing that has had me walking on the ceiling, not like in a Lionel Richie, like dancing on the ceiling kind of way, walking on the ceiling because I'm so mad.
These questions that they're asking them.
How do you say a person is going to be represented when, how do you say the rights of the victim will be represented when you don't have, you have one person out of 12 on the jury that looks like the victim and represents the victim's people group? How do you do that? How can you say that this is another place where I'm starting to feel like this is a wrap and we just got started.
Yeah.
So for those of you that don't know, they were like Nikki was saying, they were asking these ridiculous questions to disqualify people. They're in a county. So this happened like on the edge of two counties. The one county is 50-50 in terms of racial distribution. And then the neighboring county, which is where they're having the trial, of course, is 29%. But yet they still only ended up with one black juror. And they've already had to excuse one of the white jurors due to a health concern, but they just replaced her with another white juror. And what kills me about this, I don't know if anybody's following it, Nikki, but what's killing me is that the judge has already said that the defense is using intentional racial discrimination. Intentional. But the judge says, hands tied, I can't do anything about it. How are your hands tied when you're the judge?
Well, maybe he forgot to have lunch with that other judge who was like, Kyle, no, we're not going to call them victims.
Oh, not victims.
No.
Not victims.
No, they can't be victims. And
they had to have done something wrong.
Well, there was like some 5-word phrase that they used to describe Kyle Rittenhouse that I was just like, it was like, I think one of them was adolescent or youth, but it was describing, it's like they were trying to portray him as this exuberant young man who was out to fight for justice.
I mean, that's the way he would describe himself, isn't it?
And it was like, oh, look. Oh, it was another catapult.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's getting hard.
Oh, no, it's hard. We're there. It has
Okay.
gotten hard.
Okay, good. It's hard. And the hardest part about it, oh good, cat left. The hardest part about it is that for all the gains we've made, this is going to sound super cynical, guys, but I'm just going to spill it. It's almost like it's a punishment. It's like for all of the gains we have made, we're still being reminded that we have no power.
Yeah, that was my analogy for the catapult, because I feel like since 2020 and everyone was like, oh, this Black Lives Matter, this diversity and equity, and like, that's so old, that's so last year. But I feel like in some instances, for the entitled, for people who want to maintain their position, they skipped ahead of the line. There may have been this, albeit bad or unnecessary or unworthy, logical progression to move forward. But it's literally like 2021, they have literally just skipped over a bunch of things, and they can basically just tell you a white man can get $10 million for reverse
racism,
while a Black man loses his job before it even starts for diversity and equity because he's too sensitive.
And he's hired as the diversity and equity officer.
And I feel like people are just like, no, we don't care. I can do this thing. My company can do this thing. I can say this thing. I can completely jeopardize someone else's. I asked, because I was in parent-teacher conferences, which is why I came in hot, and they were on Zoom. And I asked my son's teacher, and I said, don't you think the grading scale is a little bit weighted? I said, don't you think 2 weeks into school, he misses half of one assignment and his grade drops all the way down to an F? And he goes, well, he did, but he made his way back. And I said, okay, but don't you think the grading scale is a little heavy? It's a little weighted. Like, don't you feel like that one assignment was worth a lot? I said, and it's a class to help sixth graders really integrate into, transition from elementary school and, kind of screw their heads on a little bit more independence with their learning and what is necessary. And I said, he misses half of one assignment and he goes from an A to an F the second week of school. And then it takes him basically a month to crawl out of that F. And I said, so I'm going to ask you again, don't you think that the grading scale is a little weighted? And he's like, well, but I think that can also be an enticement for the kids to do what they're supposed to do. And I was like,
did you just go over and lick the wall? Because I mean, it's the same effect, really.
I didn't know what to say. And I was like, you're misunderstanding. Like, and I didn't want to say that. And I didn't want to, and I was just like, and I said, right. Hey, Blossom.
Hi, Blossom.
And I was just like, I tried it for a third time. And I said, look, do you think that one homework and assignment in a class that really isn't about anything? I said, it's not math, it's not English, it's not any of these things. I said, do you really think missing half of an assignment should warrant an F the second week of class? I said, do you think that the grading scale should have that much weight? It should be that heavy that one assignment can drop your grade and then it takes you almost a month to pull yourself out of it? And then he went, oh, I haven't looked at it from that perspective. And I was just like, I just watched more catapults.
I'm just gonna go stick my head in the litter box. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, why is it always this massaging and explaining? P.S. We are just coming back to the physical space, like full time from COVID.
Right.
Like 2 weeks in, and
right.
You're handing out Fs on stupid assignments in a class that's kind of like a study hall. And I'm just saying that because Nikki has talked about this before. Like, that is window licking good. And that means it's not good at all. At the end of the day, you know, I feel like that is one of those rules for the sake of having rules.
Right.
And assignments just for busy work. And, you know, so many people have just kind of had it with all of that right now.
Hey, Everly. But it's also, this is a new sixth grader, new to this, you know, new to this whole middle school thing, freaking out the whole first week about the combination locks. Just came back from the pandemic. Like, everything is new, you know, and that's your grading scale. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have a fair grading scale. And I'm like, I don't remember being in middle school and missing half of one assignment for this would be like, we call them electives. And having that missed half of one assignment drop me from an A to an F in the first week. I
do, but my school was super competitive, and it was 1805. Like, we know better. Not all kids are motivated that way, and the ones that are motivated that way are very often, that kind of thing shatters a kid. And especially when you have all the transitions of a new school and a new grade, and maybe bringing in kids from other parts of the district into one place, and all of these other things that happen. Then on top of it, sixth grade, that's like puberty central. Things are exploding in their bodies. Like, they can't think straight. They're bananas. There's girls, there's boys, there's livestock. Like, these kids are going through a lot. And this much compassion, this much investigation. If you ask a question, how hard is it to ask a question? Hey, I noticed that you missed part of this assignment. And, you know, it's kind of it's worth a lot. So would you mind, maybe I'll give you another day. I'm not going to do this all the time, but this is the second week of school. So I'm just going to give you another day. How hard is it? It's not really that hard. And in fact, that kind of thing can create a new relationship with a student that can be long lasting. It's creating an ally. It's demonstrating allyship in a way that I think teachers should be required to. It's just having a heart.
And for the record, we fully understand. We fully understand the level of weight, the weight that is on teachers. We fully understand all of I don't understand it from a practical application because I don't teach in schools anymore, but I remember when I did teach and I had to grade dance. And I remember all of the stuff that they required us to do. And I was like, whose dime is this on? Because we were contractors. And I was like, write a lesson plan, write a curriculum, and
damn us.
It, you know, and I was like, wow, this is a lot. This was not a pandemic. I did not have paperwork to grade because I taught dance. And so, and I'm like, you know, all of these things having to align with state goals and then having to implement and test scores and all of these things. And I'm like, one of Aries' first preschool teachers, and man, she is an amazing teacher. I believe she opened her own school. But I mean, she was one of those people that she was so engaging. And so she wrote this thing on Facebook today, and if I find it, I will post it. And it was just like basically just a running list of what everyone is saying. What does your principal say? And it was like a little snippet of what the principal say. What does the teacher say? And it was a snippet. And this is a regular occurring thing. Things being implemented in the classroom that haven't been tested, that haven't been discussed, but they're not taking other things off of teachers' plates. Dealing with trauma. School social workers being inundated. School social workers have always been inundated.
Oh, not all schools even have social workers.
Correct,
and
because some of them travel.
Oh, yes. Good grief. Like, is that really helpful?
And this is coming off of it was sort of, you know, the interesting thing that I don't think anyone really thought about with kids being home and on e-learning, we all know this, and we know this from a professional standpoint. Social media blew up. Social media blew up. Well, guess what? It blew up for them too, because they could immerse themselves in it in a way that they had not been able to prior to that.
Right.
You know, and so all of a sudden there were so many things happening in this sort of video form, whether you were taking a science class through Zoom or whether you were taking a dance class on Zoom, and then everybody was posting everything on social media. So then it really blew social media up from the perspective of these kids with no place to go and no place to really digest it, because they were also missing the social component. It's wreaking havoc. And there is, it's almost like the kids are expecting, they're dealing with life in school as if it's happening on social media. It's like
The
that's
kids
how
are, or the parents
kids
are?
are. The kids are. Their approach to some aspects of school, because while teachers are still trying to hit deadlines and meet, the kids are running around doing some things that it's like they're living like baby influencers in some respects.
Well, let's be real. School, in my opinion, don't anybody shoot the opinionated person over here. But in my opinion, the problem with school in general is that it does not fit anybody for the most part. I mean, I think the assumption, yes, like Avatar, the assumption is that these kids are, you know, that the school caters to the midline, right? And, you know, you've got your outliers at the top and the bottom, but it caters to the middle. That's not even the case. Or if it does, the midline is like 2 people. And you know this because so many kids now have IEPs and 504s and all of these other modified learning plans. And rather than saying, we should not have so many people on modified plans, the problem is with the way we're delivering this product, which is education. They blame the parents and they blame the children and they blame social media and they blame giants and they blame all of these other things. But education is being disseminated giants from a very antiquated model.
Yes.
Boys get hosed in school now more than ever, because back in the day, you know, the expectation was you're going to sit your bony ass down in that chair and you're going to do what the teacher says, and that's it. And the kids that didn't disappeared. I mean, they weren't like killed or anything, but they were just like gone. Remember? I specifically remember, Sissy, you'll remember this, but you know, at Gateway, because it was a high performing school, the kids that didn't do well, once you got up to like middle school, it was kind of like they went down the bad hallway. Like we didn't even know. I remember you from like 3rd grade and that was it. Like they didn't exist anymore. Well, now you can't do that. You can't ostracize kids. You can't take this group and say, oh, well, no, because you're hurting our test scores. So they've thrown them all in the same pot, but they haven't changed the way they teach. They have not altered the way the information is shared, and they have not altered the expectations. This is a real problem. And, you know, they talk about how we're behind, the U.S. is behind other nations. Well, there's a lot of reasons why that's the case, and it's not necessarily a bad thing if it's managed properly. But we're saying we have all the data here. The data says that we're sucking at life when it comes to education.
Right.
But then in practice, it's like, well, but sorry, teachers, you're going to have to try harder. You're going to have to shoulder this. And students, you're going to have to try harder. But we already know it doesn't work. It's broken. It doesn't work.
Well, and prior to the pandemic, and this I know, prior to the pandemic, there was this trend of parents to have their kids be tested for IEPs because they wanted them to have extra time. And I experienced it firsthand. I experienced it firsthand. I had a mom tell me, and this is in dance, if you're a dancer, then you know how this goes. If you miss rehearsal, you miss rehearsal, you might not get that spot. This is not Dolly Dinkle's School of Dance. We're not saving the space for you. So her daughter was missing days. And as I said, I can't choreograph on someone who's not here. Let's just keep going. That's a very common thing to hear in the dance world.
Right.
It's a very common thing to
What,
hear.
is everyone else going to sit down because one person didn't
Right.
show up? No.
And so her mother called a meeting with my dance department head, and I was like, what are we meeting about? And she's like, well, apparently you said something about her daughter. And I said, I didn't say anything about her daughter. And he said, well, apparently you're not going to choreograph on her. And I said, okay, context is everything. I said, I can't choreograph on someone who's not here.
It's pretty amazing if you can, though. Boy, are you talented.
And he said, oh, she was absent. And I said, yeah, my class meets twice a week and she's missed both days this week. And he said, oh. So we're meeting with the mother, and she had the nerve to tell me it wasn't just dance. I was teaching musical theater. So it was choreography with song. And it was, I am that person who likes to highlight. These are my babies, these are my freshmen. I only ever taught freshmen. And I always wanted everyone to look good, and people in musical theater, they were at different dance levels. So I was very, very conscious of making everyone look good. Her mother looked at me and said that I was intentionally trying to jeopardize her daughter. And I was like, I don't think of her that much. And I probably shouldn't have said that. And I was like, and then she said, my daughter might be on the spectrum. And I said, oh, does she have an IEP? Does she have a 504? And she said, no, I don't want her labeled. And I was like,
well, then why are you bringing it up?
And I said, so let me get this straight. You want me to, she threatened me. She threatened to take me, she threatened to get my job. And I was like, you're threatening my job. I said, you're threatening my job because your daughter was absent and I cannot physically choreograph on someone who is not here. You're penalizing her. She did not want her labeled. She insisted that she was on the spectrum. And I said, I don't have any paperwork that says she's on the spectrum. I don't have any paperwork that says she has a 504 or an IEP. And I said, you want her to have the accommodations, but you don't want to do the work, or you don't want her labeled to have the accommodations. And I said, it doesn't work that way. And
this
my
is
department
a welcome
had said,
to adulthood moment. This is
right.
You cannot
and
have it all.
You want to threaten my job because you want your daughter favored. I said, you want to tell me that? I said, and that's okay. And I said, because you can threaten my job and then I'll just go and get another one. And I said, you can tell me all the people that you know, and then I'll tell you all the people that I know. And we can have at it. And, my boss is like kicking me under the table. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this.
Nope.
This is also what teachers are dealing with. They're dealing with parents who want to come in and do this for my child in this way, as if you hired them to homeschool your child.
Right. As if they're the only person in the room.
And presented them with a professional curriculum that's been updated and proven from the best education minds on planet Earth. But that's not what it is. And I get it. And then you had a whole slew of parents who wanted their kids to have IEPs because they wanted their kids to have extra time or extra support. My kid needs to be given this test verbally. They don't like to write. It's more than helicopter parents, Misty. It's more than that. It really is more than that. It's
exceptionalism.
It's the participation award parent. Well, they showed up.
Right.
Well, it's kind of what they're supposed to do.
But this is what happens when you corporatize something like education.
Right.
And then you have people who have never taught in a classroom, not for so much as 12 and a half seconds, dictating to people who are actually doing this as their trade how it
Mm-hmm.
should be done. It would
Yes.
it would be like me yelling over to Glenn and saying, "Okay, Glenn, I need you to choreograph this piece, and then I need you to go into the Pilates studio, and all of my friends on IG right now, they're going to take a class together. I need you to teach them." Now, Glenn is a software guy. He designs and implements software. Can you imagine what kind of flaming shit show this class would be? I don't think any of you would show up to this class more than once. And in fact, you might actually intentionally hurt yourself to get out of it. But this is what we're doing. This is what we've done. We've done the same thing with medicine. Rather than letting doctors make decisions for patients because that's their job, that's their training, instead, we let these other people do it.
My child can plie in first position. No, she can't.
100%.
Her heels ain't down. No, she can't. No, she can't because her heels
Carrie,
still up.
but Carrie
And her
is
booty
right.
stuck out. Her
I
booty
say
stuck
all the
out
time,
and her heels are up.
my child may be knock-kneed, pigeon-toed, can't touch her knees because her hamstrings are so tight. But let me tell you, she is the next Misty Copeland. Damn it. And you better give her the lead. Oh, and P.S., I want her to have one of the big, like the pan tutus. But it happens. And it happens across education. So again, who's in charge? We've got the corporate entities on one end that are being demanding to a level that just doesn't even make sense. It's impractical. Right. And you see what's happening with our educational system. 100%. This is what's going on. And then on the other hand, you've got these militant parents that are blowing up school board meetings because they don't want this taught, that taught, the next thing taught. They want their kid to have an IEP. They want their kid to have private special one-on-one time with the teacher who's only making $3.50 anyway. And, but their special gumdrop deserves all the extra time that they need because they're just a great kid.
No. I don't even go there. I'm reading Everly's. I went to dance with a girl whose mom was very intense. Most of the really intense moms had very mediocre kids.
Or they weren't even just the mediocre kids. They were also sometimes the very, very talented kids that just didn't want to be there. And they were only there because they were at gunpoint. Like I had one kid whose mom was like, if I don't see you through that window, giving it 150%, I'm just maybe not going to let you have any fun this weekend. No friends, just nothing but homework and practice. And that's it. And I'm like, way to motivate. It's also not the kid's dream.
And, one of the things that I don't have these conversations with parents. And I'm like, the first thing Miss Nikki, you're Miss Nikki. Do you dance? Well, no, I don't dance, but do you dance? No, I'm not a dancer. And I said, okay, I know you want the best for your kid. Trust me to help guide this journey. And I said, because if I put your kid where you two think they should be, you're done. Pack it up. They're done. If you think their feelings are hurt now, I said, even if they never sustain an injury, if you think their feelings are hurt now, this is devastation for a lifetime.
For
because
sure.
That's not where they are. And I said, and I will not be complicit in that. And I said, so if this is not working for you, you can go elsewhere.
Well, and it's funny, these same parents are the ones that want you to be responsible for their child's self-esteem while they blow it up. Miss Nikki should be nicer to you. Miss Nikki should make sure you have the good part. But you are a terrible dancer. And I think, you should be trying harder. You should be giving more. And we see the same things happen academically. And these kids' sports, for the love of pizza. I mean, I'm telling you, the parents fighting, fist fights at soccer games and bullying children, calling children epithets because they missed the ball? Is it really that important, Father of the Year?
Oh God, one of my favorite things to say to parents was, my daughter thinks she doesn't like you. And I said, what do you care? And I said, let's be real. That makes things warm and fuzzy. I said, do you want me to be your daughter's friend? And I said, which is gross because I don't have 13 and 14-year-old friends. And I said, or do you want me to teach dance and get them to the next space? And I said, and then they would be like, oh. And I said, right. I don't have to like your daughter. That just makes things warm and fuzzy. And I said, I wasn't hired to like your daughter. And that like blows people away. And it's like, people are like, you sound mean. And I'm like, no, I sound honest.
Well, I mean, I typically, my go-to was always, I like all the kids perfectly fine outside of the classroom. In the classroom, it's not my job to be their friends, their compatriots, their confidants. In the studio space, it's my job to shape them, just like in the educational space anywhere. And then when we get outside of that space, if there hi Robin, if there are personal things, deep important things that we need to discuss, then absolutely I'm there for them as a mentor too. But when I am a professional, because they need to understand, especially if they're going to be in this dance world, they need to understand what it means to be in a space with professionals. And I can tell you, on my worst day, I am never going to be as nasty as some of these famous choreographers that these kids work with. Even at the collegiate level, the choreographers are downright awful, abusive. Dance is an abusive world.
Yeah.
It is. Kids' sports in general, it's a lot more abuse than it should be. And then again, let's talk about that in relation to education. We have this educational environment where we're supposed to blow sunshine and gumdrops and stroke the kids' hair, but don't stroke it too hard and really don't touch their hair at all. But then we get them out onto the field and they're supposed to be animals and we're supposed to treat them like killers and all of this. Why are kids confused? I mean, the adults in their lives are cray. That's why. We do a disservice by refusing to pick a lane.
Yeah, and refusal to pick a lane. And for parents who, when the first thing out of their mouth, my daughter thinks you don't like her. And I'm like, you just told your daughter what the most important thing was. And supporting that, and then me having to break down why your daughter doesn't have an A, why your daughter doesn't have a B. Oh, that's right. You didn't realize she actually wasn't wearing the uniform that you spent all that money on. Oh no, she's not in uniform.
Oops.
She's not in uniform. And so, the same thing with teachers and parents. When parents are like,
whoa, your teacher put a lighter under your thigh? I mean, listen, I was whacked, and pushed over by a teacher. Yeah. I never had a lighter under my thigh. I think Doris Cauthen would have snapped some necks on that one. But
and he'll be burning my tights.
Burning my tights? Those tights are expensive. $30 for a pair of scratchy ass tights. Like, forget it. Damn, Carrie, your teachers were savage.
No, but it's like people who go into circumstances as if parents who take their kids on vacation and then their kid misses 2 days of school and then they're like, well, why is my kid behind? Well, that was that really important test that we told you that they were going to be taking that culminated, that finalized the chapter that we were discussing. And your child who is not 5, but your child who is 13, 14, 15 has not come to me to ask for a makeup. Oh, that's right. We just finished the marking period. So there's nothing to make up.
But it was a family trip to Disney World. She got to meet Goofy.
And then you hear the kid, you're looking at the kid on whatever social media they're on, and your kid's going, oh yeah, they came back like 2 days ago. They just wanted to rest after their vacation. They've been back. Look, mom, here's this thing on. And I'm like, but this is what parents do. And then it's, you're treating my kid unfairly.
Right.
Or you bombed the test. You didn't study. You didn't do what you were supposed to do, but you want to retake. But you want me to invite you to take the retake. No, that's not my job. If you want the retake, you have to show the chutzpah, the gumption, pull up your bootstraps and come to me and ask for it. It's like, these are patterns that I just talked to somebody and they just said, yeah, those kids don't say thank you. And I was like, what kids don't say thank you?
Right.
I'm like, who has kids that don't say thank you?
Would you strangle your children and then they would disappear like the bad kids at Gateway? Like, I mean, and it's a thing. I heard somebody just told me a story today about these kids that really weren't kids. They were like college age kids who don't make eye contact and don't say thank you. Well, whose fault is that? It gets to a point where if you're not teaching your kid because, they're shy or whatever when they're little, guess what? They're not going to have the skill when they're big.
And that's your interpretation of their feelings. That
100%.
might not even be how that kid is feeling. Like, that's just your interpretation. And it's hard for the kid to speak and say their feelings when you're 20 seconds into asking the question, you're answering for them.
Exactly. And that is so common. It's like, oh, well, he has social anxiety. I was like, but the sentence wasn't even over yet. Now, why are you qualifying it? And why are you, if he's got this issue, why are you saying it like that in front of him too? You're actually crippling him and making him dependent upon you. Eventually, you're going to want to leave. Like, when the girlfriend comes over and he's 21, are you going to be between them in bed? Well, what he really meant to say, Jenny, is that,
a little to the right.
Yeah, it works whether it's bent or straight.
But more importantly, it's not, you're diminishing the development of the pituitary gland. And I talk about this all the time. Why is that important? Because I need for my kids to understand that weird, strange feeling that's in the pit of their stomach when they meet the stranger danger that really is a stranger danger. And I need them to be just upfront and ready to go. And, you shut that off when the kid can't answer for themselves. You shut that off when you ascribe that they have social anxiety. No, they don't have social anxiety. You don't put them in social settings.
Well, and if they do have social anxiety, get them help. There are many counselors that specialize in social anxiety, but traumatizing them is not going to help them with social anxiety.
And for the record, letting them have everything they want and then them having a tantrum because their friend says, no, we have to share because it's my house and it's my toys. That's not social anxiety. You just got a brat for a kid because that's how you're raising them.
Oh,
but
snap.
My kids walk into spaces and they speak. Hi, how are you? My kids have been trained. When you're the person, this is like old Black people etiquette. Because I feel like it's just old Black people etiquette. You walk into a room. If you're the person walking into the room, you're the person who speaks.
100.
Right?
And you don't run through the room to avoid having a conversation.
No. And you stop. You stop and you speak. You don't speak as you're barreling through. You stop, especially if you're the youngest person, because I was one of the youngest people. So because you're Black. See, that's old Black people stuff. See, you walk into a room, you make eye contact. Hello, how are you? And there is a difference. Okay, it's not Spanish, right? It's not Italian, but there is a difference. You say hello to older people in the room. You can say, hey, what's up? Hi, how you doing to your cousins and your friends. But there is a difference in that acknowledgement. And whatever it is, right? It's a paragraph, right? But if you're the person entering the space that is already being occupied, you're the person who speaks.
Yep. And you know what? You model that behavior. That is something that we learned growing up because that is what we watched. That's what we saw. And if we didn't do it, it was that eyebrow. It was that eyebrow, that withering eyebrow that I'm shit, how'd I die? Oh, I died because she lifted that eyebrow and I just withered right there. 100%. It's behavior that's modeled. And if you're not going to model it, then you need to explain it. And if you're not going to model it or explain it, then you can't be surprised when people don't want your kid over at their house because your kid doesn't know how to behave in a way that is appropriate.
Sweetie, what do you need?
And we have a visitor apparently. I don't know. I don't. For our friends that eyes over the glasses. Oh, Sissy's mom was like, forget it. She would give this look like underneath her eyebrows, but over her glasses. Forget it. Don't mess with Florence. Don't mess with it.
No, these are things that are lacking. So it's not even like the kid is coming into your classroom and is speaking and is holding the door open. They're coming into the classroom with no basic social grace and then demanding things that they really have no right to demand. And then it is being, and kids, you know, because they're all frontal lobotomy, they do and say crazy stuff, right? They do and say, totally, but then their crazy stuff is wholly supported by their parents. And you're like, okay, it's just basic. But it's not so basic anymore. It's just not.
Well, but again, where does it come from? I watched a school board meeting today. It was in San Diego. No, it wasn't a school board meeting. It was a council meeting. And it turned into this holy bananas disaster because people think they can go up to a podium and they can address people in any kind of language, in any way they want. And we have Kristen Sinema, who shows up on the House floor, the Senate floor, wearing a denim vest. She looked like she just came from a mom jeans convention. I mean, I understand that society evolves in different ways or devolves as the case may be, but there's a certain level of civility, respect, pause of judgment at least, that doesn't happen anymore. We lump everybody into the same old group and not in a good way. We want something of ourselves that we're not willing to give to other people. We talk about manners. Think about Zoom. Think about how many people just sashay into their Zoom class late and stand there and stare at you like, well, why aren't you telling me what to do?
Right.
You know, it is a fundamental loss of foundation, I think, that we see. And I think that in order to get it back, we have to really be honest and we have to say, you know, this is not acceptable to me. These are my guidelines. This is the way we work in my space. This is the way you'll act in my home. This is the way you'll treat other people in my presence. This council meeting that I watched, it was in the Daily Beast. Anti-vaxxers' racist outburst at council meeting turns into epic self-own. When I'm watching this meeting and I'm listening to this guy and his freaking fisherman's hat that somebody ate, sat on, threw in the boat motor, he's disheveled. He's actually a radio host in San Diego. Like, it's not like he just fell off the turnip truck yesterday. And somebody said it was okay, or we've created an environment where this kind of behavior is okay. We accept this behavior. We might in the corner about him, but nobody in a position of authority said, you cannot come in here looking like you have been in the mines and talking like you've been in someplace worse than that.
Right. Like there has to be an etiquette. And I think that that's just, you know, I think that that's definitely just some things. there are still, Kyler had an award show, and we were like, okay, slacks and a shirt, and he was like, no, I'll just wear my joggers, and I was like, no, it's slacks and a shirt, so we need to go get that. And he was like, well, why can't I just wear my joggers? And I was like, because this is not the occasion. This is bigger than you. It's about you, it involves you, but it's also bigger than you.
And stop asking me these questions.
Besides that. But it has to be taught.
Well, especially at Kyler's age. Kyler's 13? 14?
15.
15. So,
15.
At that age, they're kind of like wild animals. They want to just do what they want to do because, hey, I'm grown enough. I'm close enough. It's like Price is Right rules, close enough without going over. I'm not officially an adult, but I'm so close that you need to just treat me like I'm an adult because I should have my own agency. And you just don't yet. You don't understand. And
I took that literally and figuratively, yeah.
Well, fair enough. I mean, both apply. But, and like Sissy says, I had a boss that insisted that we call her Barb. I always called her Miss Barb, and she would always get upset. Finally, I told her, you are trying to change 20 years of training by a heavy-handed Black mom. And that really was a thing. You did not address an adult. Nowadays, it's like, hey, Jack. I mean, I still am jarred when Harrison's friends call me Misty. And he's like, Miss Misty. Harrison gets it. Harrison corrects them. Or they call me Mrs. Cauthen, which is weird because that makes me my mother. But whatever, I'll take it. It's taught.
Which I also feel like it's, again, bringing it back to the school conversation. What is school for? School is a part of raising kids because that's their job. That's where they go, right? That is where they are during the day. But it is not the school's job to raise my children.
Correct.
They give me feedback. They give me information. They are a part of my process. But they don't get to dictate how I'm going to raise my kids. Nor do I get to dictate how the school is going to educate. Meaning, there is a curriculum that the state of Illinois says if you're going to be a school, you have to be accredited, and this is how you're going to achieve that accreditation. But it's not that, and that's one of the things that I keep coming back to with a lot of this equity stuff, and I'm like, these are goals. These are state of Illinois goals and policies and procedures and blah, 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 right? This is not coming from just some random person. This is not coming from your top dresser drawer where you keep all of your treasures and you pull out what you want your kid to learn in school today. The system of discipline is there for a reason. And so when parents come in and try to impose their will, I look at and I'm like, no, this is legislated. And you agreed to it. You agreed to it the minute you registered and paid for your kid to come to school here. That is what you were agreeing to. It is a contract. That is literally what you agreed to.
But let's be honest. I mean, especially if you said pay, especially a paid institution. You've heard about the kids at the private schools whose parents will just be like, oh yeah, you know what? I'll just start a new endowment for the school, just as long as that doesn't go on their record, and it magically goes away. And this is what we see in our legal system as well. I mean, it's a really, really appropriate example that you just gave because it goes back to what we were talking about with the Aubrey trial, and the Rittenhouse trial. There are rules, and then there are rules.
And catapults.
All comes back to the catapults in the end. Yeah. I just, I think that we have to, it's coming to a reckoning
Mm-hmm.
because the fissures and the fractures that we're seeing over and over again, repeating themselves, come from the fact that, again, when we go way back, there's always been multiple sets of rules, multiple guidelines and regulations, depending upon
Mm-hmm.
who you are, what your last name is, who you know, what shade your skin is, all of these
Mm-hmm.
things. And so if we're not going to be really honest about that, then we continue to go where we go. And then, I mean, it becomes anarchy, I guess, but it can be mitigated if we just start having real, not even conversations. It's gonna be worse than that. A conversation is like people sitting around, we've all got our mugs, we're smiling. Sometimes it's a little bit snarky, whatever. It's gonna take way more than that. It's gonna be like a dust up. Everyone's got their sleeves rolled up, you've got your headband on, you've got your wrist warmers, you're ready to go to battle, not a physical battle, but an intellectual battle, a battle of thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
a battle of all of these things that we need that comprise a strong and solid society.
Yes.
We don't have them. Right now, we don't have them. We have a bunch of
No.
rules that were only made for certain people that we only adhere to sometimes. And in the end of the day, what do you end up with? Circling the drain or the catapult with the arm that's really, really long and only 3 people are trying to pull it back.
Yep. It's there.
That is it, guys.
That is it. But I'm still going to remain forever optimistic.
I mean, that's your nature. I'm a realist. I feel like, do I think it can be done? Yes. Do I think it'll be done in our generation? I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of faith in, you don't have to change if it doesn't affect you. And people aren't yet willing to realize that the things that are happening now will affect them eventually because they'll have to.
And then they'll want immediate change.
Immediate, like this. For the exact same reason why Joe Biden could not change everything overnight. And now everybody's pissed that his agenda's gone nowhere. And I'm not saying I'm happy about it either. But what I am saying is when you inherit a dumpster and it is on fire, and the fire has spread to the building next to it, which is a row house, and the whole row is now on fire. You can't expect him to say, just come in, let's have dinner, let's work it out. No, you cannot have dinner because there is no kitchen, because the kitchen is burning. And that's where we are. You can't have dinner in a crispy kitchen. That's it. Politics by Misty Lynne. It's a special spin. What can I say? But that's it, guys.
All right. That's it, guys.
Yeah. Stuff to do, places to go, rules to change, dumpsters to burn. But thank you for being here with us tonight. Love these Thursday nights. Next week, we're back on Friday at 1 p.m.
12:30.
At real time. Oh, 12:30. That's 1:30. Oh, crap.
12:30.
I'm so glad you told me because I have gotten this wrong just about every single time.
No, you haven't.
Well, in my mind, I've had it wrong. Harmony has had to be like, do you recognize that ThoughtFLOW starts at? I'm like, oh, shit. Carrie, thank you for being here tonight. All of you. Really, really
Thanks,
glad to have you here. Great discussion and cannot wait to see you next Friday at whatever time it is. We're going to post something and Harmony will make sure I'm here and Nikki will too, whatever time it is. 1:30 Eastern, 12:30 Midwestern time. Whatever it's called. Central. Bye, guys. Have a great weekend. I hope everyone gets some rest. TLC. Tequila.
Bye, guys.
Crap. I can't get out of here.
We're not gone.
I don't want to go.